Hi, this is the next part in my parasite video. I have been diagnosed with Horsehair Nematomorpha, which is a type of Gordian worm. Well, the one I have is Gordian. There's lots of types of Horsehair Nematomorpha, and there's been about just under 20 cases diagnosed worldwide, and the type I was diagnosed with is a Gordian worm. Now, I've never videotape myself on a computer before, so I'm not exactly sure where to look where it's easiest for you to watch it. So I'm just going to watch myself on the screen, and hopefully it'll work out okay. So there's part 1 through, I don't know, 5 or 6 on the YouTube that you can watch about how I got it, the symptoms I had, how I got it diagnosed, and things like that. But this one is just an update to things that have been working for me, things that haven't been working for me. If you can tell, look at my eyes, and hopefully you can see they are really yellow, especially this left one. But this is the one I had symptoms in first, with the parasite zipping through this. Like if I look at the sky, I can see a million little things moving really, really fast. If I hurt myself, like if I poke myself, and they'll move really, really fast. Like they're in the lymphatic, and I think they communicate through the lymphatic in one of the stages of development. And so that was one of the first symptoms I had. Also, if I get in the shower, they like moisture and shooting stars. So anyway, you can see this is probably better than my other videos, that the sclera of my eye is really, really yellow. And I think that the medications that I took trying to kill them off caused some liver damage. Also, the parasites are creeping and crawling throughout me, and they could do some damage to my liver. And I wanted to share some things like that with you today that I've learned since then. I believe, I mean, this is all speculation on my part because there haven't been studies done, but I believe that they will find that that it causes problems. Certain people have problems in different areas depending on how heavy their load is. And I have someone in my family that had a unknown lump and the vaginal wall high up towards the cervix, and the doctor was older than I that did the surgery, and he said it was something he had never seen before, and that he thought it was a granuloma, some kind of a tumor. So they did surgery to remove that, and we did some things beforehand that I felt we should do. And we used the Easy-Act tea recipe that I have on my blog, and she took some of the Easy-Act tea, and the cysts on her hand, she had some cysts kind of like that, the bumps, if you can see it, but when she was drinking the Easy-Act tea, those went away. And so I believe that that helped degrade the cyst down and break it down. And I've talked about how I think this parasite becomes encrusted in a cyst when you eat something or take something medication wise it doesn't like. They burrowed into the muscle and out of the muscle when I was taking stuff they didn't like, and it really is painful. But then I think they go into a cyst form if they're in an environment or a temperature that is something they don't like. They make a cyst. So anyway, they went in to remove the cyst, and when they went to take it out after she'd been on this Easy-Act tea for about a month, it came apart. Now this cyst had been growing in size for a year and a half, and she kept tabs on it, and then went to see doctors and specialists, and then they felt that it would need to be removed because it was growing. So this was a hard cyst that was causing several different symptoms and was causing problems, and they had never seen anything like it. Personally, I think it was one of the parasites. This is really personal, and people might get uncomfortable when I talk about this, but when I would have a tampon in, the parasites, I could feel them squirming out and in and not being able to get back in. And so this is really uncomfortable for me to talk about, but because this parasite is causing so many people so many problems, I'm sharing really open and honestly with you. And I know I get people saying I'm crazy, and it really doesn't matter, but this is how I was actually diagnosed. I could feel many times the parasites in that area. I can feel them in my bladder. I can feel them coming out my rectum. I can feel them out or my So I can feel them at night. They come in and out, and it wakes me up. I can feel them wagging in the back of my throat, and it's really uncomfortable for me to talk about those private areas. But the parasites, I could feel them inside the vagina whipping around like I can in the back of the throat. So I had a tampon in one day, and the parasite, I guess, got out, and it couldn't get back in because of the tampon. So I believe that this other family member, the parasite got in and couldn't get out, or vice versa, and then it became encrusted and encysted and caused this cyst. So when they went to remove it, it wasn't any kind of tissue or anything that they had seen before. And when when they sent it into the lab to get read as to what kind of cyst this was, they just said it was inflamed tissue. And I think that parasite actually broke down the cyst, the stuff that we took, the tea, broke down the cyst, and the cyst became just inflamed tissue, because when the parasite goes in and out, it causes inflamed tissue. So that's just one thing that I believe, because the doctor was older than I am, and he's never seen anything like it before. And he said his best guess was, at the beginning, was this granuloma, and then after, he said it didn't look like endometriosis, but that was his best guess because he'd never seen anything like it. So I believe that it was this parasite. So that's just one thing. While they were doing the surgery, they checked her bladder, because they cut out the tissue around it because they didn't know what it was, and it was something that they hadn't seen before. They cut out a large area around it just to be safe. So because of that, they went in and checked the bladder. And when they went in and looked at the bladder, there was all of these little red, they call it petechia, little red dots. So if I took a pin and I poked myself in the area a lot, and there's just these little red dots, that's kind of what it looks like. Now, I know that these parasites burrow. I can feel them burrowing. Other people write me all the time saying they feel them burrowing. And I believe that, and I have symptoms in my bladder, and I've talked about that on some of the other videos, that the parasite burrows in and out of the bladder because there's water in the bladder, and they like moisture. And I talked about how I believe eventually they'll find that severe autism can be related to this because of the amniotic fluid. Because some of the symptoms I'm having now are very similar to some people's autistic things, where they talk about their hands and hands and feet being numb, and they kind of shake them and hit them against things to get feeling back. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but because I want to finish on the bladder. So hopefully I remember to go back to that. So anyway, they saw all these red dots in her bladder, and just all over. And he says that the surgeon said they don't know what causes that. They don't know why she had that. They don't have any explanation for that. And I knew immediately. I mean, I didn't tell him because it's not known, and what's it going to do? But I know that I feel them burrowing in and out of my bladder, and so I believe that they were just burrowing in and out of her bladder, and they caused all those red dots. And so I'm just sharing this because when they study it, at least it will give them something to look at. I'm not saying for sure that this is what this is. It's just my belief that this is what this is. And when they start to study it, I think urologists are going to find that it causes bladder problems and irritations. And when they burrow in and out, if they go from the colon, which has bacteria in it, and burrow into the bladder, it causes urinary tract infections. And I hadn't had urinary tract infections for years, but now with this massive hyperinfection, I'm getting them regularly. So that I wanted to share that if you're having bladder problems. I also have an aunt who died with the mental status, and she was on oxygen for a lot of years, and she suffered from this bladder problem for years. The exact same thing, kept getting urinary tract infections, didn't know why, and she didn't suffer with that her whole life. This was in her early years, and then she started to have all these other symptoms. She also did have cats. So that was just an aside there. So then bladder infections. So this family member has had problems with bladder infections, weird smelling urine, which I've talked about. I have bladder infections and weird smelling urine. And so when they burrow from the colon to other places in the body, they can take that bacteria and cause other infections. So I'm going to get to that on the leg thing when I go back to the leg thing. So anyway, I was feeling symptoms of a bladder infection this last month, and I have my doctor prescribed me Cefdinir, Cefdinir, 300 milligram capsules. When it take 2 in the morning and take 2 once a day at night for 10 days. And I had this prescription, and he actually called them refills because I was having so many urinary tract infections, but I hadn't had any for a while, but then I ended up with one this last month. So I took this medication. Like I said, I haven't been doing a lot of things to keep the parasites down. I just with crazy stuff going on. And sorry, I'm trying not to sneeze. When I took this, I had die-off, which, if you don't know, it's when you have something that you're killing off, you'll get a headache. It's Hirschheimer's reaction, I think is the name of it. And it's called die-off, and you get a headache, and you feel kind of hazy, and you feel kind of toxic. And usually I only get that if I'm taking some antifungal medications for yeast infections or something like that, killing off large amounts of yeast in the body at the same time. And usually antibiotics make you have more yeast, and you don't get a die-off with antibiotic. But what I'm learning and what I really think is, I think there's a parasite, this Horsehair Nematomorpha parasite, and I think the parasite carries a parasite. And so several people online have mentioned this, that they think that Hemolymph, I think is, so anyway, it's a parasite that has the parasite on the parasite. Because I didn't feel any die-off of the main worm. I still feel creeping, crawling. I still have the cough. I still have the sores in the back of the throat. I still have the burning in the lungs. I had no die-off of those symptoms. So there's 2 things that I think that could be. One, I think it could be a parasite on the parasite dying off, because I did have headaches every day when I was on the antibiotic. And so I think that the antibiotic was killing it was killing off the parasite in one of its stages. So maybe the antibiotic won't kill them once they're in a worm form, but it will kill them in a nematode form, or when they're in the lymphatic or something. So because I have felt more growth of new ones. So if I killed something off, I don't know, but I don't feel like it killed off any of the worms or the big worms or anything, or maybe it killed off some of the smaller ones and the bigger ones were burrowing. I don't know, but I didn't have a massive exodus of them into the muscle like I have when I take Pyrantel, which they do not like. But I did have some kind of die-off, which I've never had on antibiotics. Normally I only get that when I'm killing off yeast infections. So that was weird, and I'm just putting it out there for people when they study it. Who knows if I'll be around to tell people this or not. My family really doesn't want to hear about it because they're sick of it, and I don't blame them. I hate talking about it. Who wants to be known as the parasite lady? I really hate this. I really feel like I'm supposed to do it, but I really hate having to share that. Okay, so I talked about the bladder, how the stuff works. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was the rashes. So I've shown you several times the different kind of rashes, and if I put powder on this before, you would see it in one of my videos. It has a lot of, like, it sticks, and the powder is really like clumpy on there. But so I use diatomaceous earth, and when I say powder, you can use like Gold Bonds, but you can go to get it online. It's called diatomaceous earth, and you can go on my blog and look up what I use it for. I use it for everything. I put out my rashes every night. So I have used that for a really long time, and it just kind of kept it, but it was always still really dry and rough. And so I have been trying different creams and different ointments and zinc ointments and A&D ointment and bag balm and all sorts of different things, trying to keep that rash down, yet keep the parasites from spreading, because there's different kinds of rashes. But I found something that I'm really happy with. I use the Lugol's iodine, and I talk about this on my blog on one of the health pages, but um, iodine isn't absorbed by the body very well unless it's in this form that they, I guess Lugol was the guy's name or something. He came up with it, how it binds it with something else, and then your body can absorb it. So I was taking it for a long time, and I talked about how great it was, and I would maintain my weight because I've got the thyroid problem with the parasites in there and calcification and swallowing and everything. But I read where too much iodine can maybe cause this other problem that I was having with thyroid. So I stopped taking it regularly, and I have been extremely tired, and I drink Coke every day just to get through the day, and I get what I used to get done in a day takes me a week now. So what I wanted to get off the Coke because I know it's not healthy for me. So I started taking the iodine again, and I thought, well, I know iodine kills. You know, it is still used to a form of to clean wounds. So I thought, I wonder how that would work with the rashes, and this has worked fabulously for me. So I took tea tree oil bottle, and it was empty with just a little bit in it, and I put olive oil in it, and it says, I don't know if it's olive oil with tea tree, because I have regular tea tree that I use for burns and teething and teeth pain and stuff. But this bottle was empty, but it had a little bit left in it, so I put olive oil in it. And the reason I did that was I was reading an article about the parasites that get in your eyelashes and in your hairline, which is it's gonna Demodex, I think is the name. It's a parasite that gets in, and it's from animals, and I don't have animals, but I was having eye issues with this parasite that I have. And so I read a thing where they talked about using tea tree wipes to each night to wipe the eyes and get the crusties off. But I've been having eye problems with this parasite for years, and so I think the crusties are just from this parasite going in and out. I can actually feel them sometimes burrowing in and out, and I've talked about the lightning bolts and things like that, so you can watch my other videos about that. However, when I read about the tea tree, I thought maybe the tea tree with a little bit of olive oil, because the parasites don't like oil on the skin because it suffocates them, because they like the moisture, but they don't like oil. So I put this tea tree, mostly olive oil, with a little bit of tea tree in it, and I just put some on my thumb, and I just do this on both eyes at night, and I don't have the goopy, gunky crusties in the morning. And so I thought, well, it's working on my eyes because I've been doing that. Also, I use castor oil. You can use castor oil for that. I started out with castor oil, but it didn't have the tea tree, and it's a little thicker oil, and it does work. But I wanted to go with a little less thick oil, and so I've been using the tea tree with the olive oil, and it works great. You can use either. You could put tea tree in the castor oil, and it will probably work great as well. So I thought if it worked great on the eyes, then maybe it would work on my rashes. So I started putting it on the rashes, and it worked okay. It just kept it moist, but it wasn't getting rid of the rashes, like the scaly psoriasis almost type. You can see I just have a little bit there, and the reason I have some on that one, there's like nothing left on this one almost. It's almost gone. But the reason is because I'm right-handed, and so I put more on this hand. I put it on first, and then I rub it off and put it on this hand, so there's not quite as much. So I'm going to try and make it even so that I can clear it up. But this was all dry. My hands are always really dry. It's like Sahara. I've been out for a month and haven't had a drink. But you can maybe even see, and I've washed them several times. But you can maybe see, they used to just be scaly, just really scaly and rough. And my kids would say, I don't even want to touch your hands. I'd catch them if I rub their back. It would catch on everything. And so this has been great for that. So what I finally do now is I take the Lugol's and I put a couple drops on the back of my hand, and I put a drop or two, and then I take the tea tree and I pour it into my hand. And then I take the tea tree and I kind of rub it in with the Lugol's, and then I rub it on my elbows, and then I rub it on my hands, and get that iodine on the rash with the tea tree oil and the olive oil. I'm sure this would work with castor oil or probably any other healthy oil. Don't use ever rapeseed oil or canola, but any other healthy, pure cold press oil. So coconut oil would be great too. So any kind of cold press oil that's healthy for the body. But the iodine, I think, is the key, because I've actually gotten more done in the last 2 or 3 days, having been on this iodine for about a week or two. And I've gone off caffeine. I haven't had any Coke for days. I did have about this much this morning because I woke up with a headache. It's kind of stormy outside, but I didn't take anything except that. But I have way more energy, and I'm tired all the time, and I don't sleep well anyway, with the parasites going in and out all over the body at night. But the Lugol's is really, really helping me feel better, and just having that energy. And I just wanted to show you what the diatomaceous earth looks like. It's just a powder. It looks just like talcum powder. And let's just rub it on there. And before, if I would have rubbed it on there, it would just look like a scales, like a dried, if alligator skin or a snake skin shoe or something that's been really worn and it's all roughed up. That's how my hands always looked, and you can't even tell I put it on there now. It's just really, they're really nice and smooth. So it might not get rid of them completely, I don't know, because I've only been doing it for a couple of weeks, but I know that it's working better than anything else I have tried. With that said, I'm going to talk about the sores on my legs. So a couple months ago, I ended up with a hot, really, really hot, I thought it was a bug bite or something, and I wrote about it on my blog. You can go to my blog, thesecretisgratitude.com, and in the bottom there's a search engine, search box, and you can type in bug bite leg, and up will come this post. I thought I had some kind of a bug bite, and I got a fever, and I was achy all over. And it was not a bug bite. And I know because now I've had several of them all over. And what happened was I'm 99% sure this is what happened now. I went to bed early. I slept like, I can't even remember how many hours. It was a phenomenally long hours. I slept like 24 hours, 32 hours. I don't know. I was in bed for a long time. With this sore, I just felt horrible. I went to bed early and just slept and slept and slept. And it got worse, and it got worse, and it got oozy. So I tried, and it kind of almost looked like a spider bite or something, but I have pictures on there, on my blog. And I think I put it under Morgellons because I wasn't sure what my daughter's health problems were, but she had one of these sores exactly on the same spot on the exact leg while she was serving as a missionary. And so there, if you look at that up, it just looks like it's staph, and I believe it probably is a staph infection. And I think what happens is the parasite burrowed out, because they burrow out to lay eggs they burrow out kind of like an earthworm coming out of the hole, and then they lay their eggs, and then they'll go back in. And so you can look at my other videos and see why I believe that. I woke up one morning with a dried one hanging out of my arm, sticking out of my arm, because I was using the oils in the diatomaceous earth, and it dried up. So, so I have these sores that just show up, and they're kind of itchy bumps, and they're not really sores most of the time. They're usually just itchy bumps. But this one, maybe it was just a sore and it got infected because I scratched it, and maybe my dirty foot in the night, touched that area or whatever. But I just thought it was interesting that my other daughters have had these sores as well. So I think that what happens is they get bacteria on them when they come out of the colon, and then maybe when they're coming out or burrowing, some of that bacteria gets in the skin and causes these infections that are staph type infections. And so it's taken me a long time to get rid of that sore, because every time I'd try creams and antibiotic creams and different oils and oregano oil, and at one point the only thing that would dry it up and make it go away was, and I tried even the antibiotics, didn't get rid of it. So it was just a nightmare. So the diatomaceous earth on it, and I even thought I had shingles at one point with this. It was just spreading, because every time I got it wet, it would spread. But it wasn't as, like, it was hot and it would burn. And so not shingles, but similar. It was very painful, and it was really hot, and it spread. So anytime I'd use anything, I even put a hydrogen peroxide soak on it, and all it did was just irritate bad and spread it. So, which is weird because hydrogen peroxide kills most anything. So the only thing that worked on those sores was the diatomaceous earth. And so I actually ground up some dried oregano leaves and some olive leaf, dried olive leaf, and put that in with the diatomaceous earth and then put that on the sore. And it has taken me months to get that sore healed. And I can still feel a worm in there crawling around every once in a while. So I know that that's, it keeps going back to that same place. I'm not sure, but they seem to like to lay their eggs in the same spot where the rashes already are. Maybe it's because they've already burrowed a hole. I don't know. But I finally I put diatomaceous earth on it every night. And then when it really started to clear up well was I decided to put a couple of drops of the Lugol's iodine on that area and put the diatomaceous earth on top of it. So I drop a couple of drops of the Lugol's iodine on the sore itself and then rub it around the area because they'll kind of spread if you don't. They like to spread, but the infection will also spread. So I rub the Lugol's in the area and then I pour diatomaceous earth on top of it and until it's not pasty anymore, until it's really dry. And the combination of the iodine and the diatomaceous earth has cleared that up finally, and it's so much better. And just to be safe, because I can still feel the worm crawling around that area sometimes, it's not every day, but it's usually every, I don't know, and maybe it's, on its lifestyle, maybe it's, I don't think it's as often as far as 20 whatever days apart, but I just notice it every once in a while. So I just keep continuing to put the iodine and that, even though it's cleared up and it's pretty much healed, like I don't walk around with that on me during the day, but at night I put on the iodine and the diatomaceous earth on that area just because I know it's an area that it keeps coming back to. Because I have the bumps on my arms. There's, I don't know if you can see it, but there's one spot that's just super itchy and they keep coming out that area. And then on the other arm, that's where one of them, they like the soft, fleshy areas. The back of the knee was where I first felt them burrowing out. And then I noticed this itchy bump. And then I saw the one that came out of my arm and dried up. And so then I figured out what was going on with them. So I wanted to share that. Now, I talked at the beginning about the tingly feeling. One of the first guys that wrote me and described what the worm looked like before I had one of the big long ones. I got the big long one and got it diagnosed. I'd send in the shorter ones that were my stool, like 4 inches maybe. But this one was 8 inches. But before I saw that 8-inch one and described it to anybody, he wrote me saying that, is this what it looks like? And he described it as a coiled off of a celery. And I've talked about that before, but something he wrote me was he has this tingling feeling all up and down his leg and it feels like it's numb and it's really hard for him to walk because it's so distracting that in the morning or whatever, when he wakes up, he's got this tingling feeling in his limb where the parasites lived or were that area of his body was more infested. And I've talked about where they go, where you're weakest or where they the infection starts, they kind of go back to that area, kind of like a salmon. They just like those certain areas. So I told him I had never experienced that numb tingling feeling before, but now that I have the infection so bad, I get it more often and it's getting worse. So it feels like your hands or your arms and your hands too, and not so much my feet, but my leg feels numb. And it feels like it just hasn't gotten enough blood, but it's coming back from being numb. So like if you wake up and you're asleep and you wake up and it's just starting to not be numb, that tingling feeling, that's what it feels like. And it's kind of irritating. And he described that and I had never experienced it. So I just said, I don't know, maybe we don't have the same side parasite, but what you're describing is like, because he had some of the other symptoms and that's why he contacted me, because he saw my blog. I don't know if I had my video up at that point. I don't think I did. So he just found my blog and was saying, "Hey, is this what this worm looks like? Because I have all these symptoms, and but do you have this?" And he was telling me about this numbness. Well, I do. I have tingling in my extremities now, and worse in that left leg where that rash was and that infection was. And so I autistic people often describe that they feel tingling like that, and that when they're hitting things or hitting against the wall or whatever, they're trying to get that tingling feeling to leave. And so I'm wondering if that is one of the symptoms, that maybe they just have so many from the womb that in their system that they have those feelings from the beginning, if they just have this hyperinfection from day one. I mean, it's taken me years to get this bad with lots of weird things happening. But if they were born with that, then maybe that would explain the tingling in their limbs. So that's just a weird aside, throw it out there. And thanks to the guy who wrote me. I have a lot of people who write me with different things that they're dealing with, and some of them I have, some of them I haven't had, and it doesn't mean that it's not the same parasite. They just might have it worse, or they might have it in a different area. So anyway, there's that. Then the more I have and the more longer ones I have, the more sharp pains I'm getting all over, like just muscle cramps, weird sharp pains in like the top of my foot or whatever. And that, I mean, like I said, I'm 50 years old and I have never had these things before. So I don't think it's just age or whatever. It's just they're specific. It feels like they're burrowing, and it's just, but I'm having so many more. It's like I just have such a bad infestation, and just there are more symptoms. And the reason I'm making these videos is so that people who have this can update and know if they're having these symptoms, or they have a kid that has these symptoms, that these, if the kid's experiencing this is a progression of the illness, or they can look it up and find these symptoms and say, hey, that's what my kid has, or that's what I have, or whatever. So I'm just throwing these things out there so that they're documented. Sorry, that brain thing that happens. Also, I believe with the burrowing that I haven't eaten gluten in 4 years this last month, and I don't cheat ever. Sometimes we have accidents where it says it's gluten-free and I eat it and I have a reaction, but I don't eat most grains at all because I can't tolerate them. I just have a reaction, and it feels like I'm going into a coma. I'm just really super tired when I accidentally ingest some kind of gluten, and just in some grains in general. I don't even do gluten-free very well. And I was not necessarily like this when I was younger. I always thin. I never had a thyroid problem. I felt good. I had energy. I've always been very energetic and thin, and able to lose weight easily after kids. And so this is a very different me. And now, not having eaten gluten in 4 years, you would think that maybe my gut would heal and I'd feel better. But what I believe, this is, once again, all this is speculation, but this is my experience and this is what I believe. Looking at my kids and my family and following this parasite through neighbors and friends and what's going on in our area, that the parasites are burrowing in the gut and out of the gut all the time, and I can feel that when I eat something they don't like. If I eat ginger or curry or cayenne or V8, spicy V8, rosemary, they burrow out of the digestive tract. And then when that thing is gone, when it's gone through the system and there's no longer threat, they burrow back in. So I think this is causing the leaky gut problems that seems to be so many people are having. Why are all of a sudden everybody's gluten-free? I think this parasite is causing a lot of the problems. I mean, granted, it can be a lot of things, but I think this could be one of the main issues of why people are having so many grain allergies and dairy allergies and gut allergies. So that's just something else I wanted to throw out. Then for gut health, dairy, I've posted videos on my YouTube channel, The Secret is Gratitude, and on my blog about a yogurt maker. I know the inventor, and it just goes over a gallon of milk, and you pour the probiotic in, and then 8 to 10 hours, 12 hours, depending on what probiotic you use, it creates fresh probiotic yogurt drink. And I tried a cup at first, and I could not tolerate a cup. I can only tolerate a half a cup, and I get gassy, and I don't usually have gas, and so I don't like that feeling. So I cut it back to a half a cup, and I mix this. It's called Shake Genie, and you can look on my blog and just type in on the search box. You can type in yogurt milk carton or I think I wrote Shake Genie on there. So you can go to that, or you can look at my video on YouTube. So I do a half a cup in the morning with some vegetable protein in it and some moringa powder in it, because those seem to help the amino acids, and the moringa powder seem to help me have a little bit more energy. And so I was doing this regularly, and then I stopped for a little while with the chaos of the surgery and everything that was going on a couple months back. And then I've started doing it again, and I think that that's also helping me have more energy. However, I felt really strongly to contact a guy that I don't know really well. I just met him in passing at a couple of singles functions, and I found him on Facebook, and I told him about this yogurt maker. And I had him contact the inventor and go try it, because he has had something wrong with him for 20 years plus years, and he cannot gain weight, not at all gain weight. And I contacted him and told him about this, and he's like, well, I can't do dairy. And I said, I don't do dairy well either, but I have a feeling, I just felt to contact you. I know it sounds weird, but you might just want to look into it and try it. So he contacted the inventor and met with him and tried it, and got one of the makers, and was making his own is making his own probiotics. And that was many months ago, months ago. And the other day I felt like I should contact him again and ask how he was doing. And I contacted him, and he said this is the first time he's ever been able to gain weight. He's actually been doing it regularly, and he can tolerate a little dairy now, and that the maker has changed his life. He's using whole milk because he wants to gain weight, and I use skim milk because I want to lose weight. But I know some people with this parasite. I don't know that he has this parasite. He doesn't think it's the same thing that I have, but I know that some people I personally know in my family that have this parasite are skinny, and cannot gain weight. And I, on the other hand, cannot lose weight. If I diet and exercise, I actually gain weight. And when I'm under stress and dieting, because I puts my body under stress when I exercise and diet, and then I just hold on to everything, and I actually gain weight. So, but I think that this yogurt probiotic, because you know it's fresh probiotic because you just made it, and I think drinking that helps heal that gut. And I don't know, because it makes it alkaline, I don't think that the parasites like it as much. So I'm just putting that out there, because if you have this parasite and you can't gain weight, that might be a way that you can gain weight. And this guy, I don't know if he's put his testimony on the website or not or anything, but I personally know him, and I contacted him and told him about it because I felt like I should, and I don't even know this guy very well. So it was kind of embarrassing for me, but he was very grateful that I did, because it actually has helped him to gain weight. And so I think gut health is important with the parasite because of the leaky gut with them crawling in and back. So that's why I've been taking that, but I wanted to share that with you in case there is somebody who's having a problem with weight gain and or allergies to dairy or whatever. So that's been helping me, not as much as it helped him, but it has helped him tremendously. So you can check those out on YouTube or the blog if you think that that's something that might help you. Okay, I think that was it. There was something else that came to my mind I wanted to share about, and I am not remembering what it is, and that's frustrating. Sorry. It was something I don't think I had talked about in my other video, but I didn't make a note. I should have, but I was talking when I thought about it, and I was like, oh yeah, I have to say that. So check out my blog if you think you have this parasite. You can read all about it. I haven't had time to make a page of just what the symptoms are and when they occurred, because there's so many and they come up in all the time. So now I would have to go back and add these parasite symptoms that I have now, and then the ones that I posted about a couple months back, and the ones from a month, you know, and so I haven't done it. I know that I need to do that, and I will at some point get to that. I really want to. Oh, it was about suicide. Okay, this parasite, I'm glad I remember that. This parasite is causes its host to commit suicide, and I don't know if I've posted about this or talked about this on, I don't think I did. So I've done some research. My state and 7 of the surrounding states are in the top 15 states for suicide in the nation. My county in the state that I live in is one of the highest teen suicide rate in ever anywhere. It's so high, the teen suicide rate here. And I believe it's just because this infestation of parasites. Because recently, like I said, I was so busy, and my eyes are yellow, and some of the stuff I would do to keep the parasites out of my eyes was causing them to be yellow. I was using a lot of tea tree oils. I mean, not tea tree, thieves oils, which causes an orange. And then I was putting iodine on my toe, and anyway, I stopped doing the colloidal silver in the eyes, and I stopped doing a lot of the thieves oil, and I stopped using the iodine on the specific areas because I think they were making, I didn't know if that was part of the reason my eyes are so yellow. So I stopped using those. But because of me stop using that, I have had more of the weird, I've talked about the suicidal thoughts of like, she killed herself in a high mountain stream, or I'll just wake up and I'll see myself diving off of an edge of a cliff into a lake or a river. And I've never had suicidal tendencies. I've never had thoughts of suicide. And when I wasn't doing as much stuff, I'm doing more now. I've told you I'm using the tea tree in the eyes and the blah, 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 iodine. But right before that, I was having these weird thoughts about the world would be better off without me. My kids I'm just a burden. I mean, stupid things that I know aren't true. Like in my mind, I'm like, this isn't true. What is going on? And I also wonder if maybe the antibiotics I was on killed off the parasite on top of the parasite or whatever. I don't know, but those stopped that thought process. And maybe it's just lack of nutrition as well, because I know significantly, I talk about this on some of my pages about nutrition, vitamins, helping depression and suicide and whatever, and it could be just the weather coming on. But with all that, in 50 years, I've never had a thought process like that where I would think, oh, my kids would be better without me, or, you know, I've never had that problem. So I knew it wasn't me. I knew it was something else. And so I researched, and the states that are the lowest suicide rate are California, Florida, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, states where you go in the ocean and you swim and you eat seafood that has iodine and zinc and minerals in them. And they have the lowest suicide rate in the nation. And the highest suicide rates are at the states that are high, deserty soil, mountainous, where they wouldn't get any runoff or storms from the ocean, and they wouldn't have iodine and iron and zinc in their soil. And so I think that they're going to find that, and I've talked about that before about the minerals, but when I actually looked at the states this past couple weeks and looked at the suicide rates for the states and the suicide rates for the coastal states, it was so profound. Now, Alaska and Maine are high states that have ocean and may eat seafood, but they also don't get the vitamin D. And most people that they test that are depressed don't have vitamin D. So I think there is also something to that vitamin D thing. So in being in the sun. So I think it's a combination of the minerals and also the vitamins. So anyway, my battery is dying on the computer, and it's been a long video. So this is for those of you who are diehards and are trying to figure this out. I hope that I've shared everything that I needed to share, and it's beneficial to you. Sorry it was so long, but there was a lot of information that I felt like I wanted to share. And keep checking out my blog and my YouTube channel for updates as I figure it out and learn things. I'll keep posting and updating. Thanks for watching and have a blessed day. Nope. Sorry.